If you're thinking, I should go for a run today, but it looks like it could rain, Sierra says save on epic rain jackets. If you're also thinking, but I can't go out in these beat-up old running shoes, Sierra says save on top brand running shoes. And if you're still thinking, but I'm also busy performing brain surgery, well, then we say, you really should have led with that. Sierra, let's get moving to your local store, like now. Go!
Drink it in, man.
Oh, Darius! How big are you, young man? How big are you?
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid drinkers, what is going on? This is your boy Oakrey. I got Griff on the other end of the line as usual. Griff, what's going on?
Hey, man, just getting real excited, man. Veterans are going to report, man. Training camp starting.
I think they either kind of meet or report tomorrow, Friday, first kind of on field, and then Saturday and through the weekend we'll be up and rolling, so that'll be great.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. So everybody out there, we're coming back at you, and we told you Grifka set the tone this week and said we'd be talking corners and wideouts. So Grifka, I throw it to you. What player you want to start with this week on the Detroit Koolaid Cast?
Oh, if we're talking corners and wideouts, man, we got to start the cornerback. We got to start with Big Play Slay, of course.
Oh, of course.
We can't go with anybody else.
Your boy.
Yeah.
Oh, man, Grifka, for everybody out there, Grifka has loved Big Play Slay from day one, going all the way back. I think we went to, like, the first training camp practice after Slay had been drafted, and we're watching him, and Grifka's kind of nudging me, going, man, I think this cornerback, this Slay, is going to be good. And I'm like, we'll see. He wasn't really on my draft radar, at least in high second round. So we're hanging around after camp or whatever. All of a sudden, there's Slay right in front of us. So I start yakking, right? I start telling him, Nate Burleson was there too, wasn't he, Grifka? Nate was right there by him. And so yep. I start yakking at Nate, and I'm like, hey, Nate, did you give the young fella the old double move? How about the old okey doke? And I can't forget them both laughing and Slay being real humble, but Nate being like, no, man, he's going to be a good player. He's going to be a good player. So, of course, he says that. I kind of laugh it off. I'm just there having fun. Big Play Slay signs our my old mini helmet or whatever I had that day, and hey, I was just
I got
so
a
disappointed.
I got a handshake, man. I remember I shook his hand. I'm like, hey, can I just shake your hand? And he's like, sure. And I'm like, hey, you're going to be good. And he's like, thanks. That's all he said to me. He's like, thanks. And like
you were like, a fan from day one.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Just shake your hand, and I was just like, "Oh, you signed my helmet? You ruined it."
I'm like, dude, he's gonna be good. Whatever, yeah. You gave it to a bum out in the parking lot. You're like, here, man, here's a mini helmet by Big Play Slay. Take it off me. I don't want it.
Oh, give me some credit. I think I eBayed it for $30 or something.
Yeah. When you told me that, I'm like, what the heck are you doing? He was like, yeah, then I'm like, how much you sell it for? And you're like, $30. I'm like, the helmet costs $30.
I was just trying to break even because people out there, let's get it straight. We're calling him Big Play Slay all day here. But this guy was not big play at that point. He was an under-the-radar injured cornerback that hadn't done anything in the league, had barely even had his first practice. But I got to give it to Grifka. He did say he'd be good. Every time we went to the games, he'd be saying, see, look at Slay out there making plays. And I kept arguing. The guy hadn't made big plays until the last couple of years where he started making turnovers and really being that lockdown corner. So Grifka, stories aside, past aside, talk to me about Slay. If you need, I can get you his contract numbers here. Let's talk about the player, the contract, his age, all that good stuff.
Well, let's see what Slay's only 27 years old, man, coming into his prime. What, he originally signed with he had the 4-year deal out there. And
48 mil, yeah. 4 years.
Yeah, and I think was it after 2019 he has the opt-out. You know, there's like the opt-out he can do, I believe, is what's there. But what he does, what he brings to this team, I mean, it's probably one of the most, I don't know, I wouldn't call him elite but he's like right below that tier 1 DB. So what he brings to this team, I don't want to say he locks down the side of the field. And maybe it's just because the other guy on the other side was never that good, so they always threw to the other side. But what he does for this team, what he's making, I'm not saying let's throw the bank at him. He's not Deion Sanders by any stretch of the imagination, but I like what he makes. I like what he brings to this team. He brings a swagger to the defensive backfield. He's almost like the Yang to Glover Quinn's Yin. Like Glover's he seems like mellow. He's got it, that steely veteran. Where Slay, man, he just like, I don't say he's yapping, but this guy's high energy. I love this guy.
Yeah, definitely. Folks that are out there listening, Kool-Aid drinkers, if you didn't listen to the last episode, Griffith slipped in a few classics. I think Ronnie Lott made the last episode. Yep. A classic tight end from the 90s made the episode, a few other people. So he's already got one of the 90s classics. It's Neon Dion in this episode. So thank you, Grifka, for always pulling out those gems. Yeah. But, I mean, where I'm at with Slay, I mean, I got to give it to him. Like I say, I was just I was not on his side there for a bit. I think he's really proven himself as a lockdown corner, a turnover football player, and a guy that is just a tremendous interview, a tremendous guy in the locker room, worth every penny. I'm looking at it right now. His average amount's around just over $12 million. The corner is a position that I think the corner is one of the 3 or 4 premier positions on your whole team. And so I don't mind putting my money there. I got him locked up kind of till 2021, and I feel great about it. So, Grifka, I tip my cap. You were right. I wish I had that helmet back, but I definitely just glad we got Big Play Slay on the team and that he's lived up to the nickname.
Yeah, I'm so happy he's back there locking down one side. Problem is now we got to talk about the other side, and who do we go to? Who do you think is going to get it? Let's talk about the guy who's been starting. Let's go with Nevin Lawson. What do you think about Nevin Lawson?
All right, yeah, let's run down Nevin Lawson, 27 years old as well. He signed a 2-year, just over $9 million. So he's got just signed that this offseason, so he's got those 2 years left, about $4.6 million per. And I don't know where to fall with this guy. I mean, I feel like I've been standing up for him or being like, hey, I'm glad we have a young, versatile corner on our team. But I think me and you have talked before that he always seems to get picked on. He has a lot of penalties. He really hasn't lived up to like what we kind of hoped he would be when we drafted him. But they seem to be keeping him around, used to the scheme, as well as just a guy they seem to like. But, I'm not a huge fan, but $4.6 million for, again, a corner is something I'm willing to look at and be okay with. But, not my favorite. And like you say, he's been the guy out there, but I think we're going to talk in a bit about some other guys that might push him down the depth chart, which I would like, except for if he gets pushed down the depth chart, I don't like the $4.6 million as much. So what are you saying about Lawson on the outside there?
I feel the same way you do. I really think this is, I know he signed that deal recently, but this is really kind of make or break if he's going to be a starter, be at least a little bit of an impact, or just the guy who he's either the nickel or he's the guy who fills in when somebody gets hurt. He's like you said, he always seems to get picked on, maybe because Slay is so much better than him. Everybody's like, okay, we're going to go after Lawson. He seems to get burned on a lot of plays. I don't see him making too many interceptions. I don't think he had any last year. I remember he had like a fumble recovery, take it back to the house for a touchdown. But he just always seems to be kind of like maybe a step slow. Either, I don't know if it's paralysis by analysis or if it's just one of those things where everybody who he's facing is just that much better than him. I mean, this is one of those years he's really going to have to show something. 27, he's going to be coming into his prime. Yeah, it's a new defensive scheme he's going to have to learn with new coaches. But it's still one of those things where I just don't feel comfortable with this guy. I know, was it when Slay got hurt? Was it last year or the year before? Everybody's like, "Oh, Lawson's playing better." Well, no, Lawson was playing better. They were just throwing at another defensive back who was actually worse than Nevin Lawson. So it made him look better. So, but once Slay came back, it was the same old Nevin Lawson. It was like, well, what happened? What happened to his game? It's just like, no, he just wasn't getting thrown at. So I want to give this guy one more chance, but if he gets pushed down the depth chart, you're right with the salary, just because he's making a little more. I don't want to say we got to play him because he's making more, But if there's somebody better out there, Tease Tabor, or if they're gonna like move Quandre Diggs or something, I don't know. But I'm just never comfortable with this guy. He always seems like he's a big bust play waiting to happen against him. So that's how I feel with Nevin Lawson.
All right, yeah, fair enough. Right at the end there, you kind of said a big bust play. I think one thing I've liked about the Lions the last year or so with their corners is I don't feel like we got thrashed for plays up over the top. Now there have been some big plays. I remember the one, the heartbreaker against the Steelers, where backed them up, and they just creased us with Juju, and he went to the house for like a 90-yard touchdown. But I don't feel like those have been as prominent. So even though Nevin Lawson hasn't been very good, I don't feel like he's got roasted like in the past where, we're getting 50-yard touchdowns or people are falling down and scoring TDs on our corners. So he's got some grittiness to him. I'm looking at his numbers. We'll move on to the next guy in a minute, but just looking at his numbers a little bit deeper. I'm looking here. He has a 1.25 roster bonus in 2019. If he makes the team right before the third day of the league year, he's got that guaranteed to him. In 2018, it says here that he's got per game active bonuses. So if he makes the game day roster, he's going to collect 25 G's per. And then he's got a $100,000 workout bonus this year, and he's got over $800,000 in incentives just in general in this 2-year deal that he signed. So I'm always a fan of incentives when you can get them. And I think, this is a player that he wants to earn it. He wants to be good. He just needs to be a little less handsy, and he needs to come up with some turnovers, whatever it takes. Or like you said, if they're going to play him in the nickel or in the slot there, he just needs to find his role and do it well when called upon. So I'm fine with him on the team, but if he doesn't show out this year when he's given the opportunity, I think you may be looking at a cut before they have to pay him over a quarter of his money before the league year starts in 2019. But I'm glad he's back to add to our depth and, hopefully can show some improvements this year. So with that being said, Grifka, I want to jump over to a guy that I'm going to be honest right up front. This was a guy when they drafted him last year that I was kind of like, I liked it because of the position and because of the fact that at least before all the pre-draft got going, he was a pretty highly rated guy. But by the time they took him, there was so much talk about his speed and his this, that I was kind of like, is he going to work in the NFL with his speed? Even if your instincts are great, if you can't run or if you can't cover at an elite level in the NFL, it's going to be a short career for you. So everybody out there knows we're talking about Tease Tabor, the second-round pick out of Florida. This kid's only 22 years old, super young, so he's played 1 year in the league, only 22. 4-year rookie deal, so 4 years, 4.8, 1.25 million per year. The hype train is going. Everybody's saying he's probably the starter opposite of Slay. I'd love to see it. I just need to see him for a long time. I love his length. I can't remember how tall. I think he's 6'1" or so. He's really got some long arms, and I love players with instincts. I feel like GQ and some of our other guys have some good instincts, and that makes up for other things in their game. But Tease is really going to have to not only play great with those instincts, but be healthy and find a way to make up for that speed if he doesn't have it. Now, I know there's been other people that have said they don't have speed. I think it was Joe Hayden, right? Had no speed, and he's been a Pro Bowler a long, long time in the NFL. So, Griff, could talk to me a little bit about Jalen Tabor.
Now, I like Tabor. He, once again, he played at Florida. I realized, like I said, I always thought his rookie year was kind of like a redshirt year, get his feet wet, learn from some of those established veterans in the defensive backfield. But I know with football, like you said, everybody's brought up like how fast he is, straight line speed. And you're right, you can't teach speed. Either you have it or you don't. But what I like about this guy is that you brought up his instincts. I think he reads plays very well, so he's able to either jump routes or he's in position to make a play, either knock the ball down, maybe come up with a pick. He did that a lot at Florida, so that's what I'm really hoping what he does here in Detroit. Like you said, he starts across from Slay, and Slay locks down one side, so the other team's like, yeah, we're going to try this guy, second year, young guy. And this guy's just there to make plays. When he did play last year, he made a few plays, and that's what I like to see. But once again, he was still a little raw, being a rookie. and I know we've talked about this before. I'm not a huge fan of rookie DBs. Simply, it's just DBs like it is. It's one of the hardest positions to learn in pro football. You're out there on the island. It's one of those things where I'm almost kind of glad he got it. His feet wet that way. Even though we needed a defensive back when we did. But I think even like you said, he's not fast, but I think he just has good instincts to make the play. I'm happy with him, man. I think he can be around for a while. I'm not calling this make or break year. Next year might be one of those things. They start wondering if he doesn't show anything this year. Next year is going to be his last chance. Like you said, it's a rookie deal, so it's still pretty cheap to the team. They don't have to worry about cutting him or anything like that. Worry about any salary cap. Him binding up the salary cap or anything like that. But I like the guy. I would love to see him start. Love to see what he can do. Like you said, I think he is about 6'1". So, I mean, that's a little taller for a defensive back. And I know some of the team's lines play. They have those tall wide receivers, so that could definitely help. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to see what this guy can do.
Yeah, it'd be a big year for him, no doubt. Now, one thing, Griff, I kind of want to rewind the clock to back to Slay and talk about Lawson and Tabor about their tackling. Like, to me, a corner, Dion would always tell you not paid to tackle, but he was so good. He just made so many big plays. He didn't have to. But I feel like we have a young group, athletic group. And to me, like, Slay's a pretty good tackler. Like, I don't see him running away from plays. Now, is he coming up in the box all the time? No, but we don't necessarily want him to. But he tackles it. To me, Nevin Lawson is gritty, as I said, and we'll tackle and we'll put you on the ground. And I can't remember. I want to say there were some good highlights of Tabor really laying the lumber to people, but I feel like he could be despite his speed and other things we've already discussed, like he could be a good tackler and just a really good football player at the corner position if he plays out best case scenario. So are you with me on that we have an athletic young corners, the ones we've talked about so far, and guys that aren't going to run away or aren't terrible tacklers?
Yeah, I'm happy with what we have in the defensive backfield, safety-wise, cornerback-wise, but you're right. I think these guys just like to come up. I'm not saying they're going to stick somebody, but they're going to come up and make a tackle. I don't think they're going to come up and whiff on guys. So, yeah, I like what we got back there.
And that's what you got to have. I mean, you can't be a pure cover and you can't just be a tackler. You got to be a little bit of both to really be able to have a good unit. So I feel good about that. I'll just throw it to you, Grifka, on Jamal Agnew. He was another draft pick last year, later in the draft. Give me your overall thoughts on him, or, again, another rookie contract, 4 years, $2.6 million total. So only $600,000 a year. Really showed some incredible stuff in the return game. And now they're probably looking to have him still do that, but hopefully see him a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball if that's where they want him, and even played some offense last year. So talk me through this guy.
Honestly, the way I feel about Agnew is like if I see him in the defensive backfield at some point, starting at corner or nickel or whatever, that defensive backfield's in trouble because there's a lot of hurt guys back there. I really like him as a punt returner, kick returner, special teams guy. The guy's fast, he's shifty, he's quick. But the way I feel about him is like if we see him, starting across either from Lawson or Tabor or Slay, that means we're hurting pretty bad in the defensive backfield, especially with what we've signed, and what we already had back there. So I like him on the team. Love the guy on the team. As like I said, a special teamer, man. He's he can get upfield pretty quick and make guys miss. I mean, like I said, I'd rather him even do that on offense, man. I don't want to say run the wildcat, but run some stuff like that to get him his hands on the ball on offense. But I like him more of a special teams guy than playing actually, on the defense. That's how I feel about him.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm glad you have that take because I feel pretty much the same way. Like I don't remember seeing a ton. I feel like when he got in there, he was more than serviceable, but I really liked him more as an offensive gadget guy and a kick and punt returner. But I got to give it up to Daniel Jeremiah, man. I'm just all about NFL Network around the draft. Griff, could you know that? I'm sure everybody out there listening is. And Daniel Jeremiah is my guy, man. He has some funny takes and just seems like a good dude all the way around. I remember him just calling out this Jamal Agnew like months before the draft, saying, there's a lot of buzz about this guy. And then he had the pro day where I think he ran like something ridiculous, like a 4.3 or, something really low like that, and everybody was wowed, but they were just kind of like, San Diego State, wherever he was from, it was kind of this no-name small school. And Jeremiah was like, no, man, this guy's got speed and he can play the game. And I think he nailed this one. So I was so happy. I remember when Bob Quinn took him, I was kind of like, oh, man, that's a Jamal Agnew that Daniel Jeremiah was talking about. And, man, if he can have, similar year to last year, like, even if he takes a downturn, I feel like he's still a good piece, getting him in the 5th, 6th round, wherever we ended up taking him. Like, to me, whatever you do, gadget guy, defender, kick returns, to me, if he has 3/4 of the year he had last year, it's more than a good piece on this team. So I love the guy, and I think he's a young guy that just has room to only get better. 23 years old, another really young guy that seems to have all the things you look for.
Yeah, that's how I feel about him as well.
So looking at our sheet, Grifka, we've got Mike Ford and then Charles Washington here on my list. I want to take a second to sort of talk about Mike Ford. I don't have everything in front of me on him, but I'm trying to remember. Like, he was an undrafted guy, and I know there was some buzz about him. I want to say he was out of Texas.
Yeah, he came out of Texas.
If I have it right.
Yeah, he's out of Texas.
Yeah, and there's some buzz about him making the 53, or will he have any noise in training camp? Again, only 22 years old, and they guaranteed him $20,000, which on an undrafted guy is decent. It's not one of those bigger numbers you see, but it's also not zero. So they seem like they're going to give this guy a chance to do some things. I feel like he's a guy to watch. And like I said, other than that, I don't know a ton about him, but I'm curious to see if he gets any buzz. Charles Washington, Grifka, is 25, and he is on the final year of his deal. It's like a $500,000 minimum. It seems like this guy's been kind of just hanging around, but I don't ever remember him like out on the defense doing anything other than running on special teams and things like that. So any thoughts on Ford or Washington before we move on to the wideouts?
Camp bodies. There you go. That's my thoughts on them. Camp bodies. Michael Ford, if he's around, he's going to be a practice squad guy. I mean, based on the guys that we've covered, guys in the defensive backfield that can flip between safety and corner, Ford's going to be, he's more of a developmental guy. If he can stay on the practice squad, it might be one of those things where somebody else is interested in him, and then they got to put him on the roster. But I don't see him playing on Sundays. Washington, same thing. I think he's just a camp body. He's there so Slay can play 2 plays and then go hit the showers and ride the bike and stuff like that. So that's how I feel about those guys.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see. The only thing is, like we talked last week about the safeties and how some of our safeties had like corner safety flex. I mean, we only named off 4 or 5 corners right there. So, that's where you always get worried that an injury or two can really put you into Agnew starting or hoping that Mike Ford or somebody like that has some promise. So, I'm sure we're going to move Walker and Shed, as we talked last week, around if we were to get injuries. But, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing another corner either emerge or be signed or be brought along somehow because, what's the good old saying, you can never have enough corners, and I've always been a fan of that. It feels like we're drafting them now at the right time, at the right value in the draft, but, you got to put an emphasis on having not just one good corner or not just 2 okay corners. Like, you got to go, 4 or 5 deep, I think, to get through an NFL season.
Yeah, I agree there.
So all right, man, let's move on to the wideouts. You gave us the first corner. So Grifka, let me do what I've done on previous podcasts. Let me give you the first wideout, can I?
No problem, man. It's up to you. Go ahead.
We are going to talk about my boy, the man, Kenny Galladay. Oh my goodness, Grifka. I got this guy in almost every fantasy league. I watched a few games from last year, and to me, he just jumped off the screen of he's long, he's athletic, he's got a good head on his shoulders. He makes ridiculous catches when the ball's anywhere in his area. To me, this guy, I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but he's 24 years old. He's 6'4", 200 and 20-ish pounds, maybe a little bit less than that. He's on a 4-year deal. We took him in the 3rd round, so only $3 million total. Only making $700,000 or so this year. And to me, we talked in the past about what he do with Golden Tate, this, that, and the other. Like, I'm a real proponent of this year, putting Tate in the slot, putting Kenny Boy on the outside, and putting Marv on the outside, and throwing the ball up for grabs sometimes rather than all this dink and dunk that we've been doing. So this is my make it or break it guy, not only for the Lions, but for every fantasy team I have, as far as a big swing on a guy that most people don't, think much of, or think, he's got a little buzz, but what is he going to do? Like, I think in a year or two, we could be talking about this guy as our number one and as a guy that's just a dynamic playmaker in the NFL. So there you go, Griff guy. Sold him high. Kenny Boy, as we call him, Kenny Galladay. What are you saying?
I'm still cautiously optimistic with this guy.
Of course.
I mean, once again, rookie wideout. I mean, he was hurt last year. I mean, let's see how he goes this year. If he ends up on, if it's one of those things, where if he gets hurt again, he misses substantial time like he did last year, people are going to start wondering, is this guy injury prone? Can he play in this league? Can he stay healthy? But like you said, I would love to see that too, where they, they have speed on the outside, to take those safeties, they just, those two, Jones and Galladay just, run go routes. The safeties have to follow them, leaving the whole middle open, underneath for Golden Tate, something like that, like you said, or even just throw up jump balls and have those guys go get it. But like you said, rookie contract. I mean, this guy's going to be around. They're obviously going to put time in this guy. They think, he can be, a big part of the team. Once again, just as long as he can stay healthy. Can he stay on the field? That's the big thing. I like him too. Don't get me wrong, man. I have him on a couple fantasy teams as well. But I'm cautiously optimistic with young wide receivers like that. See what they can do. Especially, is he going to get enough balls thrown his way? Especially with the other wide receivers that we have on the field as well. But yeah, I like the guy.
All right. Well, here's the thing. We got a bunch of names still we got to work through here, Grifka, and so I won't spend too much more time on it. But I want to say one thing. Like, the main reason you get a lot of cred for Darius Slay is because you called it basically from day one. You've also called that Brandon Pettigrew was terrible from day one, and you said Nick Fairley wouldn't be good from day one. So I give you credit for all these calls. And Eric Ebron, you hated him too.
Keep it going, man. Keep it going. I got a bunch.
Well, you get credit for those, but those are the few where you really had a strong stance, negative stance from day one that came through, that I remember at least. And I only give people credit normally for stuff like that, because I hate it when people, and you do it a lot, so do my other friends, where you either play both sides of the fence, or you'll say I like him a lot, but I got to see more. Oh, he's got to prove it to me. Oh, he's got to do it's no fun when you wait for 3 years and the guy has two good years and one bad year, and you go, oh, okay, he's pretty good now. Yes, the sky is blue and water is wet. We know these things by then. The best part is when you come out like I'm doing on Kenny G and saying, this guy has got crazy upside and I'm expecting him to take a big leap. And then if he does, great. I get the cred and you can put it down. Okay. If he doesn't, you tip your cap and say, okay, I was wrong. He sucked. But you got to go one way or the other. You can't just ride the fence all day, or say, I'll tell you he's good once he's good. I mean, that doesn't work.
But you do that with every Lions rookie. You're like, this guy, yeah, we'll give him a chance. He's going to be good. You have faith. And I'm just like, this guy's terrible, man. I don't know what you're talking about. And then it's just when it happens, I'm like, told you. And then you're like, well, yeah, you're right. It's nice to not ride the fence that way. And, I will applaud you when Kenny Galladay is playing in Hawaii or Orlando, wherever the Pro Bowl is or whatever. Okay. I will tip my cap to you at that point.
All right. Yeah. I mean, like you say, I gave you credit. You've been right. And I do view towards being optimistic, especially on these young guys. But I mean, just watch this guy in interviews. Look at how athletic he looks. Look at how focused he is. Watch him on the field. I mean, he bends and moves really crazy and could just be a ridiculous athlete. So anyway, it's on tape. I put it on tape before that I'm just really expecting a big leap from this guy. So let's move on. Let's kind of take, again, we want to move through these at a decent pace. So let's let's kind of bundle Tate and Jones. Just kind of talk me through those guys in general. I'll give you their contracts here real quick, and then just talk me through them. Those are other two top wideouts. Expect Marvin to be on the outside. Golden Tate outside, can move inside. Marvin Jones, 28 years old. He's making $8 million per year on average. We've got him for another 3 years under contract. Golden Tate's in his last year of his current contract. He makes just over $6 million this year, so a little bit less than Marv does. And the main things are obvious, Griff. I mean, these guys have been productive. Marvin Jones took a nice step forward last year. We're hoping it keeps up because it would give us a good receiving core. But give me some of your thoughts or what you think is not only going to happen with them this year, but what maybe you do with Tate and what you think about their contract numbers, since we're talking dollars and cents here.
I'll start with Marvin Jones simply because, I mean, we know he's going to be here. He's the one that signed the big deal. They brought him in to be that, guy to stretch the field. But I think one of those things too, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Marvin Jones has another one of those after the 2019 season. I think he has an opt-out. I don't know if it's his opt-out or a team opt-out or a mutual opt-out. I think that's also in the contract as well. Like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. And we haven't signed through, 2020, if he stays with the team. So he's going to be around. I mean, they're expecting, lines are expecting a lot out of Marvin Jones. So like I said, his age, 28, he's in his prime. He makes good money for what he does. I mean, his contract, I like his contract when they signed him. I never thought he was one of those guys that was just taking the money, and then come back just to collect his paycheck on every Tuesday. So I like what he does. So I like Marvin Jones. As for Golden Tate, I think Golden Tate, what he does for this team, he makes plays. Like I said, we talked about this before, where he's the guy, if they need 7 yards, they'll throw him a 5-yard route and he'll get you the extra 2. He can break tackles. And that's what I like about him. He's shifty. He can, he gets the yards that's needed, and he catches the ball. Yeah, he has a drop every once in a while, but he's probably been one of the more dependable receivers the Lions have had at catching the ball. With re-signing him, I think it depends on what really happens with Kenny Golladay. I mean, not trying to bring up Golladay again, but if Golladay takes, big steps forward and the Lions can okay, we can get this guy and we'll just go get some cheaper guy to run in the slot, then they might not, sign Tate. But if it's another, if Golladay doesn't progress like the team wants, they might want to invest some money in him. But once again, Tate's 29. It's not real old, but it's not, it's probably in the midst of his prime. If they're going to re-sign him, once again, the money's got to be right. I'm not saying Tate's going to take like a hometown discount, but I think he's loved by the fans. So it's one of those things. I think the money's got to be right. And at 29. At a wide receiver, you're probably looking maybe like a 3-year deal, 3-4 max, depending on what he does. That's what I would be looking for him. But once again, if it's one of those things where another team wants to throw a bunch of money at him after this year, depending on what kind of year he has, I'd hate to say it, but yeah, I'd have to let him walk. Simply for that, based on they've already got a lot of money spent in Marvin Jones, and they really want Kenny Golladay to develop. So that's how I feel about those two wide receivers. What do you think about him, Derek?
Yeah, good summary, Grifka. My thing with Tate too is 29 years old, and I don't see him taking like a 2-year deal almost no matter what the contract is. Like, I'd love to get him at 2 years, even if we had to take him from $6 million up to 10-ish. But if you're looking for 4 years or 5 years, like, to me that's gonna be too much for me to do. But I like what he does. I just if you can keep this group together, all the better, because we're about to talk about the guys behind him, and I'm not a big fan of these other guys, but I like the trio this year of Marv, Tate, and Golladay, and that's all up to Tate, what he's willing to accept and what our vision is for him, because I think he could be a dynamic slot player. I think if you just got him in there and had two athletic guys that can go deep or could stretch the field, like, he could just tear people up, little catches, doing all his run after the catch kind of stuff. But I really don't see him as a dynamic outside guy anymore, regardless of the contract. So, I'm high on our receivers, our top 3 for sure. And I love the contract number. I got to talk for 1 second. You said Marvin, good contract for what he does. Like, to me, again, we're not going to pull up all the receivers, but $8 million, like, Jarvis Landry just got I want to say 15, 17. Sammy Watkins making 17, 18. That's 10 million more than Marvin Jones. Like, to me, we got him a few years ago at a price for people like, 4 years, 5 years, 40 million. I don't know. And now you just look at those deals and think, wow, those things are great. So I love both their contract numbers right now. Absolutely. Almost no matter what they do, I love the numbers.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a big key having. It's a big thing for us, for the Lions, to have those guys that, like you said, at those numbers that they're making.
Yeah. Cool, man. Let's bundle 3 more guys together, just kind of like the next tier. So we got TJ Jones. Let's bundle him, Chase Billingsley, and let's throw this unknown in there that got all this buzz at the camps, and that's Theo Redding. So I'll walk you through, Grifka. TJ Jones, 26 years old, only has 1 year deal right now for nearly $2 million. We've got Chase Billingsley, 25. He's got 2 years left at basically the minimum, 500,000 or so. And then we got Theo Redding, who's basically an undrafted guy. He's this big, lanky playmaker that I guess was just catching everything, making circus catches at camp, which we've seen those before, but I have heard some buzz about this guy. So take those however you want them and tell me, are you okay with the numbers? Can these guys actually be a 4-5 type receiver, or are we looking at some cuts here? What are you thinking?
Okay, I'll start with TJ Jones. This will be quick. TJ Jones is on the team. He's got pretty decent hands, and the only reason he's on the team is because he knows the offense. I mean, that's what he is. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we've been waiting for this guy to, touch the field, be the slot guy, before they, had Galladay and everything. But let's face it, he's on the team because he's cheap. He's got pretty decent hands, and he knows the offense. That's how I feel about him. He's your 4th wide receiver. Chase Billingsley, it always seems like every preseason, all those games, he's always making all these miraculous catches. I'm talking like the tight, the ones in the tight windows where, either, linebacker throws a hand in the way or the defensive back's coming in right as he hits him and he catches the ball. But this guy just never makes the team. I don't know what it is. I don't know why the other coaches don't, what they see, what we don't see. Because once again, we only see the game. So he must be, either something's missing in practice or he's just not as good as what the film that we're seeing, because he goes on the practice squad and, other teams can sign guys off practice squad, but he never leaves. And so we always see him on the practice squad. So I'm not quite for sure what Chase Billingsley is. And Redding's the last.
Chase Billings is your boy. You said in a previous podcast you want to see him out there this year.
Right, and that's just like from the tape that we've had. So I'd like to see what he can do. But like I said, I don't know if we're just missing something in practice. Either he's not getting something in practice or other people are showing stuff in practice to get it on the field in front of him. So I know in the past, we've all seen like all those preseason games where all these unknown wide receivers just have miraculous games, like 4 catches, 125 yards against, the Buffalo 4th stringers, or they have like, 2 touchdowns, like 5 catches, 2 touchdowns for 70 yards. And I was like, how can they cut this guy? But then he gets cut and he doesn't get signed by anybody else. So I kind of feel that's what Chase Billingsley is. I'd like to see a little more out of this guy. And this is obviously the year. If he doesn't do anything, it's like, okay, see ya. You can. I don't know if he's been around. Was it you only get 2 years on the practice squad? After that, it's like, hey, we have to cut you loose. So I don't know. I would just like to see a little more of him, simply because he makes those tough catches. Like I said, in traffic, a DB's hitting him in the back. Somebody, tips the ball. He's got good concentration. I think he's just got good hands. So I'd like to see more out of him. And then Redding, the last one, to me, once again, like you said, he's making these circus catches in practice. To me, camp body. If he's around, he's practice squad. That's what he's going to be. I don't see. And once again, I think it's one of those things. If we see him starting on Sunday, that means we're hurting at wide receiver. That's where I think he's at. Obviously, a developmental guy. He's tall. Maybe can go up and get the ball. But that's where he's at this year. He might be around practice squad a couple years, and then we don't hear from the guy. That's how I feel about him.
So what you're saying is Theo Redding could be good. Will he be good? Right?
No. Yeah. Could he be good? Yeah. In 2 years, will he be good? No. I think he's another one of those wide receivers that, like people fawn all over him. It's just like, I remember, was it when the Lions signed Patrick Edwards? Remember that wide receiver? This guy's fast. He can stretch the field. That guy couldn't catch a cold in Alaska. But everyone's like, I remember I was actually reading people's stuff. We're saying we got Patrick Edwards. We can trade Calvin Johnson. Okay, I was reading people saying that, and people are like, "Are you freaking nuts? He's fast. He can stretch the field." I remember plenty. I mean, Darius Haywood Bay's fast. That guy can't catch. I remember Alexander Wright for like the Raiders and the Rams. That guy, same thing. The guy's fast, man, but they couldn't. They would need like freaking Gorilla Glue on their hands to be able to catch a ball. I mean, it's just, and that's so maybe Redding's making all these great catches, but once again, yeah, will he be good? Probably not. This guy's going to be like, bagging my groceries at Myers here pretty soon. That's all I think.
Oh, Grifka, we're winding on the podcast. You got to get the taglines in for the people. And you're supposed to go Teal Redding and then compare him to old Green Bay receiver, insert here.
Okay. Well, he's not Sterling Sharp, man.
Perfect. We had to get that in too. So real quick, I hate TJ Jones, to be honest. Like to me, this guy is such a wimp. Like he's just like this little wimpy, skinny receiver. He's got his stupid one eye black on that he wears, like he's left eye from TLC. And like, I'd rather just have a big blocking receiver or a guy that had some grit to him than have TJ Jones who makes one play every year and people get excited about him. But like, he'll probably come out this year and surprise me, but I've not been a fan for a long time. I think you're fine on everything else you said. I'm a little bit higher on this Teal Redding, of course, because he's a young, unknown guy that I heard some buzz about. But I love guys that can go make plays and that have a good attitude and that just have some buzz about them. So I'm curious to see. I think he may be a training camp / preseason darling, where by the end of camp, you're having to wonder if this is a guy worth keeping or not. I don't think he'll be bagging groceries. I think he's a developmental player that, you can hang on to. And Grifka, to wrap us up on receivers, I don't want to take a ton of time. To me, Chris Lacey, Brandon Powell, Dontez Alexander, and Dontez Ford, Bradley Marquez, as you said, to me, those guys, as you've been using the term, camp bodies. They're blocking, they're grit guys, they're special teams guys. I don't see anything there, but I do think, we will see those guys in the preseason. And, if one of them can kind of be a component in one of the three phases, I'm fine with it, but I don't expect much. So you really need a bunch from those top three. I'd love to kick TJ Jones out whenever possible and get somebody that's better. And I'd love Teal Redding to surprise me a little bit. So that's where I'm at with receivers. Wrap up receivers, and then we'll wrap up this Kool-Aid Cast, Grifka.
Yeah, those last few names that you mentioned, they're cannon fodder to me. That's what they are. They're tackling dummies. They're getting
They're what?
They're cannon fodder. They're just there.
What's that?
Cannon.
You got to explain that for the people. That's not a term, bro, that we use much. Give it to me.
Cannon fodder. It's just I don't want to say, for lack of a better, your waste is what you are. I mean, you're there. That's all you are. You're there you're there to take the beatings. You're there to, get the water for the established veteran stars. You're there to scrape their windshields in the winter, when there's frost on them and everything. That's what you're there for. You're just cannon fodder. It's just like they could shoot you out of town and nobody would miss you. That's what they are. That's what they.
Who says cannon fodder in 2018? Like, when was that you last used? In like the Middle Ages?
Could be Dark Ages at the time, but when they first invented gunpowder, maybe. But that's what those guys are. You're right though. But the top three guys, they're gonna have to put up the numbers. I know. You bagged on TJ Jones. Like I said, he's only here because
he's terrible.
He's only here because he knows the offense. He's got pretty decent hands. But like you said, this guy, I don't know if they like fake an injury for him, just to make him feel good because he went to Notre Dame or something like that. I don't know, but you're right. I mean, I always see like people like, I know what New England's like looking to trade Malcolm Mitchell, but that guy just got knee work done. I'm almost kind of tired of like all the New England guys coming here because I'm starting to get the feeling of like when was it Rod Marinelli came in and we started signing Ryan Neese and Calvin Pearson, who was actually the backup to the backup safety, by the way, Calvin Pearson, but he knew the Tampa too, so we had to get him. That's kind of, I'm starting to get that feeling with all these guys. Like, you're like, this guy was on New England's practice squad, and this guy, knows, played with Patricia back in New England. It's just like, well, that's great. I'm glad, but can he play? And I'm starting to get the feeling, that's what we're getting with these guys. But yeah, Tate, Jones, Galladay, they're going to have to put up the numbers. TJ Jones, he's going to be there if one of those guys get hurt. Jace Billingsley's got to show something in the preseason camp, or that guy's going to be working at Wendy's. So that's all there's to it.
All right, you heard it here first, everybody. Cannon fodder, Grifka says. Oh, man, Grifka, we got to get our verbiage up. We're going to lose listeners after that garbage. TJ Jones, speaking of garbage, must stand for Terrible Jones. Get him out of here. But, yeah, that's the receivers and the corners. So, everybody, appreciate everybody listening. And Grifka, we'll have to come back and kind of finish out this roster and these contracts here soon. But another great talk, kind of working through our roster. And I love talking about the guys that cover the wideouts and the wideouts on this team. So, again, me and Grifka pretty positive. Kool-Aid drinkers, I'm sure you are as well. And, again, we'll be back with another Kool-Aid cast here soon. So, Grifka, send us out of here.
Hey, Lions fans, training camp, get hyped. We're ready for this. Go Lions.
Let's do this. See ya.
Pack the bag, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.